Time now for the warm and fuzzy part of the show, the Friend Zone. We invite our friends from within the building here at Fox onto the set to be nice to them. Tonight we're joined by Gillian Turner. She's a Fox News contributor, also a senior associate at Jones Group International. She worked at the White House and the National Security Council under both President George W. Bush and President Obama. And speaking of the current president, still in office, he now has a new explanation for the rise of ISIS. The intel community let him down, he says. Listen.
The rise of the Islamic State surprised you. It took you by surprise. It took the administration by surprise.
The ability of ISIL to initiate major land offensives, that was not on my intelligence radar screen.
So, Gillian, I mean, the right answer is yes, I was taken by surprise. So he has to shift blame to the intel community. But I got to say, he's not the first president who is mad at the intelligence community, distrustful of CIA, or unhappy with the reports he's received. I mean, that is a theme you see.
Yeah, and it's also a two-way street. You know, there's the report that came out of the Republican leadership in the Congress earlier this year. They investigated and found that junior folks over at CENTCOM's intelligence arm were getting pressured by their seniors to be more optimistic in their delivery when it came to the war on ISIS and how we were doing. The point there being that it takes a whole lot of trust and a whole lot of working together on both sides there in order to make that intelligence relationship work. It's not as simple as a product being delivered and it's 100% right or wrong. Intelligence delivery to a president is more of a dialogue.
There are so many layers, though, beneath the president from which this stuff bubbles up. You'll never get down and find out where it came from. Really, you can't. How do you trust it? And this is going to be a question for President Trump, I think, when he takes office. How do you trust that these briefings are right, that there's no agenda driving them, et cetera?
You have to, as the commander-in-chief, as the president, you have to really be an advocate for, this is what my personal take on this, you've got to be an advocate for diversity of opinions. You can't try and stovepipe this stuff. You've got to really encourage people who disagree with you. You've got to encourage, and I don't mean in political discussions.
Of course.
I mean, you've got to encourage the junior analysts with a lot of promise, with a lot of experience in the field, to come forward and really tell you what they're thinking. And I think that's something a lot of presidents don't really take on.
But, I mean, you say diversity of opinions, but if you didn't go to Harvard, you should be quiet, don't you think?
Well, obviously.
Did you go to Harvard?
No. I went to Columbia.
You went to Columbia.
It's much
so
better.
how did you, I've always wondered, since you're here, how did you wind up going from Bush seamlessly over to Obama, and what were the differences? So
the reason that I went seamlessly from one to the next is because I was not a political appointee. So I worked at the National Security Council, which is kind of, I'd say, 70 to 30.
There you are, 2006.
There, oh my God. Well, I look 2006, yet I look 25 years younger. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But because I was not a political appointee, the Obama transition folks, there's my brother and my dad, asked me to stay on when they came on board. So I switched from one administration to the next. It was a very strange, surreal experience. Working through that transition was one of the more confusing things I've ever been through in my life.
Did you notice a distinct difference in management style and priority?
In everything. In management style and priorities, because of the new policies, right? Entire offices at the National Security Council virtually disappeared overnight. So, for example, the Iraq Affairs Office that we had, because President Bush was running a ground war in Iraq, which ended somewhat abruptly. Under President Obama's tenure. At the same time, he also decided to surge with 30,000 more American troops in Afghanistan. So that policy office greatly expanded. There was a lot of sort of things on the ground inside the White House that changed virtually overnight. You had to kind of get your mind around that.
So basically ideology drives policy from day one, you're saying? I
don't know if you call that ideology. I mean, for President Obama, you know, ending the Iraq War and bringing the soldiers home was something he campaigned on. So it was more of a, you can call it ideology, you can call it a policy priority. But I think that those kinds of decisions have very real consequences for the way the president staffs his White House, and that's something you really feel when you've worked on in two administrations, especially going from one party to the other.
Okay. Two so far, and we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Gillian Turner, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tucker.